Working on this 2010 Mercedes E350, and the customer complaint is check engine light. He's been dealing with this issue for about a month or two, and I will show you what's going on. As far as trouble codes is these two Evap codes, but mainly, like he's told me, this one has not been there. It's always that first one that will return after he clears it, and it's the shutoff valve and the charcoal canister supposedly is staying stuck off. And then this one is a new one. I believe he said the very first time when he got the vehicle that was there, but then every time it gets cleared, the only one that returns is the top one. But for I guess us, lucky enough, we also have the second code for pressure sensor switch, basically short to ground. Things that have been done is the purge valve has been replaced. This is the original one, that's the new one. He's done this one as well, that's the charcoal canister, the shut-off valve. So that one's been replaced as well. But what I believe is going on, I'll show you, is in my gut, I believe the pressure sensor, there's an issue with the pressure sensor. So right now, in the current live data, if you look at the pressure reading, it's negative 0.005, voltage is 2.86. Now there is no vacuum and or pressure. It should be basically atmospheric type of environment. No, it should be at its starting point as far as the sensor reading. To kind of prove that, I can open to atmosphere by clicking open the purge, and we are still at the same pressure reading. Now this valve that is in the back, it is always open, and when activated it'll push in and close. So you can see that this travels. And I have checked that one in the back, it does move, and I'm assuming this one also obviously worked properly. So right now in the current state, we are open, and in the rear where the charcoal canister is, where this is, so it's open, venting or attached to atmosphere from the back into the tank all the way through the line up to the purge, which is now also open, and I've got this in the neutral position, so we are basically attached to atmosphere front to back through the tank, through the lines, and the starting point is what this sensor is reading there. Now this brand new OEM pressure sensor that I have here, if you look and see, the on just powered up, attached to atmosphere, its starting idle point they'll call it, is 2.992, somewhere in that range. That's with no pressure on it or vacuum on it. That's its starting point. Anything below 2.99-ish is going to be in the vacuum state. Anything above the 2.99 is going to be positive pressure. Right now, when attached to atmosphere, it is reading lower voltage than the starting point. What I'll do is show you a test. So active, go to the canister shutoff valve, and in this test it has you basically check for a leak in the system by closing this valve in the rear and watching the pressure sensor reading. So obviously ignition on and 0 RPM. we'll continue. So here is our starting point. The rear valve is in its open state. So it tells you to hit F1 to close the valve, pull a maximum of 25 HPA, and after you pull that amount, watch it for about a minute. It shouldn't drop more than 5, and then you go ahead and open it. So we'll watch the reading here. We're not going to be too concerned with the spec because there is no leak, but let me just go ahead and show you. So in order to pull a vacuum, I have to open the valve, which I do have open still, and I will switch this to vacuum and pull a vacuum. And so we'll hit F1. Now the valves are closed, and we'll pull vacuum. This needle won't move that much because of the scaling. We only need to do so 25 HPA is 0.362-ish, I think, but just for reference, I'll go to 0.1. So there, like I said, this one will barely move, but we've pulled a vacuum. We know we have, and it'll pass the minute test, which I don't know when we started. So I believe 5 HPA, I think, is 0.070 or 72 psi. So it would need to go from 0.10 down to 0.03 and then some to fail that leak test, which it doesn't, because I've done this off camera, and I believe, like I said, I know what's going on, I think. So again, we've not dropped that full amount, and so now we will open this in the rear with the scanner, and then that should relieve the vacuum because it'll attach to atmosphere. So okay, watch. So now its vacuum's dropping, raising. It should raise all the way up to basically close to 0.0, because we are also still open here, and now we're open with that valve in the back, as we can tell in the state. So 0.049. And now to look at that in voltage, go live data, fuel system, 2.83. After it knows that it has relieved or released the voltage to the valve, and it should have gone straight up to atmosphere, so 2.99 and change volts, which is this on the new sensor. The code that it has was for this guy staying stuck closed. Let me relieve that. So in order to pull a vacuum, this has to close, and it'll watch the pressure reading of the sensor go further into negatives. Once this opens up, that pressure reading should go up close to 0.0. But if it stays in the lower voltage scale, below 2.99, it's going to be in negative psi. It's still in the vacuum state after it knows this has opened. So it thinks that this valve is stuck closed, hence the trouble code. So the problem is not this valve or this valve. The problem is the sensors staying stuck in the negative state after vacuum has been pulled on the diaphragm of the sensor, it stays in that range after even vacuum has been released from the sensor's port. So that is what I believe is going on, making it think that this stays stuck closed and vacuum does not get relieved, but it's because the sensor stays stuck in the vacuum reading and the sensor doesn't come up to 0.0. So the thing now that I will do is go ahead, I'll replace with this brand new sensor, and that should take care of the problem. I wanted to just get you a quick shot where that's the charcoal canister, there's the shut-off valve, and then there's the fill tube, which I've got released. The gas tank has to get dropped. Unfortunately for this one, there is no access panel for the Evap pressure sensor, unlike other vehicles. So we've got an access port there on the passenger side, one there. There is a fuel pressure, like liquid fuel pressure sensor there that you can access, but the vent pressure unfortunately lives somewhere in right smack in the middle of the gas tank. And here is actually the connector. There's a harness that'll go to the connector. So and there is absolutely no room. The tank is sitting right up on the body, and I guess the only way to do it, unfortunately, is to drop the tank to be able to access the middle to replace the sensor. Well, just out of curiosity, I before clearing anything, I am in just generic OBD, and I want to see what codes it pulls up in OBD as opposed to factory codes. So, okay, we got 2422, 0452. Vent valve stuck closed, and Evap system pressure sensor circuit low. Okay, so those are your P codes. And then now that I've got the valve installed, so here's the old one, all dirty and dusty. So the new one's in. I'll go ahead in factory mode, clear the check engine light, and then run the same test. And hopefully everything should work out as I'm thinking. So now again, I just wanted to get this on camera. We are back in factory mode, so you can tell, and to show you, I haven't cleared the codes yet, but right off the bat, just looking at the data PIDs with the new sensor, you can tell we are reading differently. We are bouncing between the 30 and 299 and change, which was what I was measuring on the scope. So that is our true starting point, 0 point, which again, when I had it on the scope, it was just at a standstill, atmospheric pressure, and that is where we're at in the tank. So going into active test, same way. Continue. Okay, so the valve is in the open state, and there is our pressure. And we will go ahead and do the same test, so I'll close that. That changes. I'm going to apply power to my valve here to be able to feed vacuum. And there we go. And there I'm about the 1.0. And this is actually still with the valve open, and the vacuum pump and the hose and the adapters, all that connected. So probably bleed off a little. I could probably disconnect the vent valve up here to have it completely sealed, but it's not dropping drastically like a major leak. So again, the system is sealed, and let's relieve it and see what it does. So it's shooting back back to our starting point. That I believe was the same same voltage, the 0014 that you see here. So, and you saw it wasn't hanging up, still in negative. So that, I believe, is going to be the correct fix. So just for we'll look at voltage and PSI in the live data. Fuel system. And there you go. We're back to true 0 PSI and the starting correct calibrated 2.99 for the beginning point of pressure reading for atmospheric. So the sensor's not hanging up anymore. It's not going to throw the code for thinking the charcoal canister valve is stuck closed and not relieving vacuum, and the pressure and voltage will not be low anymore, which if it's stuck low, it can think and throw that second trouble code for short it to ground, because if you short it to ground, it'll go to lower voltage, basically close to 0, if not 0, if it's true short. And I believe that's why that code was generated, because along with the separate charcoal canister trouble code, the voltage code is because I think the voltage reading just stayed stuck lower than what it should. So maybe it just was unable to identify or define correctly, and it would throw both. But like I said, the shorted code was maybe, I believe, once every couple months, it looks like, from what I've been dealing with him with on. And the valve one was always continuous coming back. Sometimes it might take a week, sometimes it was almost right away. I think it just depended on how much that sensor would hang up, staying stuck in the negative reading with the diaphragm staying stuck down. But again, I'll go ahead and clear the trouble codes completely on this, and that is all that is going to be on this one. It was not either the vent valve or the canister valve. This one was the pressure sensor. That's how it determines whether the system can move air or not, is by checking the pressure readings. Unfortunately, the location of that pressure sensor is a little bit a pain in the butt, but now this customer is going to be happy. No more check engine light, and we clearly can see the before and after as far as when it's faulted and now when it's correctly operating. So I hope you enjoyed this one. This was interesting for me, but glad that it's fixed, and thank you for watching. And then that's all for this one for now.